Hi, this is Leah and Wookie from Mandala Studios. Welcome to part 4 of our Making a Severed Head video. This is Fabrication, and we're starting with casting a foam vertebra.
So we're starting by preheating a mould. That just means that the mould's nice and warm for when the foam goes into it. It'll expand nice and evenly without hitting any cold surfaces. We have an old plate heater for that, and there's just me putting it away. Now we're getting ready to mix up some foam. You'll see we've got 2 parts of foam. That one is the isocyanate. It's very poisonous and crusts up in the atmosphere, hence the need for the pliers to open it up. We're just mixing it up into a silicone cup so it tears out nice and easy.
We've got the mould there on the table waiting. The vertebra is to go at the base of the neck so that it doesn't just look like a mass of foam where it's been cut off. He's mixing it up there, got to mix it up nice and well, and then putting a bit in to get the details. He has made far more foam than we need because obviously we're working in such small quantities, it's really hard to make that work.
Just pushed it into the details with my fingertip and let it expand. I'm going to clean it up now.
So it's it's a couple of hours later at this point so that it's had time to solidify nicely. If you take it out too fast then you'll crush the thing you've made.
And there we have a nice foam vertebrae.
Which you can't see at the moment because it's just a massive white. So we're trimming off all the extra flashing on that.
Just using a Persona blade onto a bit of random scrap foam core.
The original vertebra was 3D printed. We haven't used a real human one for this. The one we used to make the mould. But we only need the detail on one side because it just needs to be on the side that's poking out.
Now we're going to make some nurnies. They're just latex dangly bits that look like a trashed up bit of flesh. So you just paint some latex onto a plastic surface or glass surface, something very smooth. Put it on, dry it out, then stipple on another layer.
Stippling helps get rid of some of the brush strokes.
Which you might or might not want depending on what you're trying to achieve. On this one I wanted stipply texture.
Yep.
So you let it dry out, then you just pull it apart with your fingertips. For this one I'm doing another layer because I want a more sort of structural piece with more solidness to it. So you'll have some thicker bits, some thinner bits, so hopefully it'll move around a bit more in interesting ways.
Yep, and these again are to go at the base of the neck with the vertebra to try and make sure that we've got a little bit more interesting structures there. Doesn't just look like a lump of foam.
So again, rip it up and you can see how it's sort of got some interesting shapes forming in the different thicknesses of the ripped up latex. Then we just talc it down with a big bucket of talc and dust it off. Then we're going to do the whole thing again. This time, however, we're going to make some sort of vascular, arterial, throaty tubes. So what we can do, mix up the latex onto the table, put it out nice and flat. Then we're going to, once it's dry, which takes a while.
And it's just latex with sort of flesh-coloured acrylic paint in it.
Yeah, it's kind of a darky brown because it was going inside a body which tends to be a darky, messy, reddy colour. It's just it's going to get painted, so it's not too important on the tone, it's just disguising it. Yeah. You see, so we rolled up one side, then on the other side we're going to get a piece of foam rod and roll that up. So we've got one thick and one thin tube.
Finally onto the third piece. So this is going to be made in a fairly similar way to the first one, but it's going to be left looser. It's not going to have that second layer of texture added on top.
Yeah, so just put it on, put on another layer, dry it out.
More drying it out.
Yay, drying. I should probably have edited this bit out.
You had to put up with it a lot slower, so... There we go.
There you go, just again ripping it up, and you'll be able to see in a minute. See the holes are getting a lot bigger, sort of kind of a looser structure to it.
Yeah, and you'll see both of them on the same screen in a minute, and you'll be able to compare the one that's been made with only one set of layers of latex and the one which had the second going over. So he's going to talc that down now. There we go, that's just to stop it sticking to itself. So we've got the latex eyelids. So we made the mould so that you could have the eyes open or closed. This means that we're going to have to put on eyelids or eyes to show which one it is each time we use it. It gives us more flexibility with the head mould. So he's mixing up Cavasil and latex to make a thicker latex in order to be able to make the shapes, and we're going with open eyes on this one?
Yes, it's open eyes. It's just simple thickened latex.
Again with the flesh colour. Or a flesh colour, I think.
It's a brown, it's the same,
yeah.
It's exactly the same brown because I had it
it's
lying
the same
around.
latex, yeah.
I could have mixed this up with an actual fleshier tone or a latex colour just to match the thing, but it's all getting painted. As long as it's not too ridiculously like green or bright blue or something that might show through the paint of the eyes when I come to that, whatever is fine. Avoid black or something. So just stippling on, or putting on some thickened latex, trying to create the look of open eyes. It's not turned out great, but it's probably good enough for what this is. And then just stipple the edges down with some stipple sponge, just try and get some texture into it.
So you were saying earlier that if you're doing it again, you'd probably use a folded edge of tissue or something?
Yeah, soak some tissue in latex and then just lay that along the edge of the eye. So you've got one layer of tissue going back out and a few layers rolled up to create the edge of the eyelid. You'll probably get a much smoother transition.
So that's something for trying next time we do it.
But it kind of works.
Yeah, it works. It looks pretty good. So
again, just trying to make it look as much like eyes as I could. Then we're going in with a silicone tool to try and crispen up that eye line.
The edge of the eyelid.
Yeah, I can't think of what that bit of the body's called. And put some creases and stuff in. So for this one we needed to add some bark pieces because the character it's representing has some bark. So just a couple of layers of latex each side to use as a contact adhesive. So put it on, let it dry, put it on, let it dry.
This is latex bark that we've made previously. It's the stuff we sell in the shop.
And that's just a bit of bark moulded in plaster.
Yeah, so thickened latex going around the edge of that because you need the transition between where the bark is and where the skin is, otherwise it just looks like you stuck some bark onto their face.
And the bark mould is real bark, so it doesn't have a nice cutting edge or anything.
Yeah.
So you're just trying to create something so you haven't got any gap where the bark jumps up or anything like natural things tend to do.
Yeah.
Again, this is just thickened latex from the eye going around the edge.
And it's all going to get painted. It's all been painted over.
Now we're going on to building up the neck. So you can see we've got...
Those are our tubes that we made in the Nurney section.
See, I took the foam back rod out there, so you've actually got a hollow tube showing, and then the two thinner, just twisted bits of tube.
Yep.
Mix up some more polyfoam. 2-to-1 mix, and we're adding a couple of drops of flesh tone pigment, just because if you ever see anything...
Yeah, it means if we can't get paint all the way into the gaps, we've got the right colours behind it, so it doesn't look too odd.
At least close to the right colours.
Yeah, yeah.
We should probably have added some red, but I didn't.
So that goes in, and at that point you're holding the tubes in.
Yeah, just holding those tubes in roughly the right place.
Yep.
As the foam expands up around.
If you're not holding them, I imagine they'd lift out a bit, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
And then move out of position.
Nothing particularly accurate, it's just creating some bits and just stabbing in some loose bits of Nurney's into the edge.
And
of
in
the
a minute
foam.
he's going to go and put his vertebra in.
Yep, so we mix up another batch of polyfoam.
Yep.
Again, this is toxic, the isocyanates are bad for you. Big open workshop, extraction on, wear a mask if you can. So we pour that in, carefully trying to avoid the bits we've already put in. Then as it reaches the right place, we push the vertebrae in and then just put in bits of random Nurney's around the edge, use bits of foam to stick them in place, and try and create some sort of messy, ripped up neck.
So it looks like it's been properly, whoever cut this head off did not use a sharp blade.
And the only reason for that is it probably looks more exciting. Now we're just cleaning up the seam lines on the head from where we moulded it.
So this is the join between the two lines. There'll be a little bit of flashing, so we'll just take that off.
And just using an old sanding bit on a Dremel. If you use a new sanding bit, you have to be very careful. You might want to use a felt bit, but I prefer old sanding bits. They're a bit more aggressive than felt, and I find that works really well. And there you go.
It's ready for painting now, so thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe and share it.